Chapter 17. The House at Dusk. Dusk softened the edges of Birkin House. The sun had slipped low behind the cliffs, leaving the sky washed in muted violets and bruised golds. The sea below moved with a slow, exhausted rhythm, as though the storm had drained even the tide of its strength. The house stood in silhouette against the fading light, no longer menacing, no longer hungry, simply old. Nesrine walked up the gravel path alone. Arthur had offered to come, but she had refused gently. There were moments in an investigation, and in grief, that belonged to one person only. This was hers. The front door was closed now, the wood dry from the day's sun. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The house greeted her with silence. Not the tense, listening silence of before, not the haunted silence of the storm. A different silence, the kind that follows confession. She moved through the hall slowly, her footsteps soft on the worn floorboards. The air smelled faintly of salt and old paper. The light filtering through the windows was thin, the last remnants of day stretching long shadows across the walls. She paused at the bottom of the staircase. The house felt lighter, not unburdened. It would never be that, but less clenched, as though something inside it had finally exhaled. She climbed the stairs. At the landing, she turned left, not toward Jane's room, but toward the study. The door was ajar. She pushed it open. The room was dim, lit only by the dying light from the window. The photographs on the wall looked softer now, their edges blurred by shadow. The desk sat exactly as she had left it, the bundle of letters sealed in its evidence bag. But something was different. The chair had been moved, not far, just a few inches back from the desk, as though someone had sat there recently, as though someone had risen quietly, not wanting to disturb the room. Nesrine stepped inside. "Are you here?" she whispered. The house did not answer, but the air shifted. A subtle change in pressure, a faint stirring of dust motes in the fading light. "Hi." She approached the desk and placed her hand on the back of the chair. "I know your story now," she said softly. "All of it. Not the version they told, not the version you believed, the real one." The room remained still. She sat in the chair. For a moment, she imagined him sitting where she sat, hunched over the desk, writing letters he never sent, drawing faces he could not forget, trying to make sense of a world that had no place for him. She opened the top drawer. Inside lay a single sheet of paper she hadn't noticed before. Not a letter, not a confession. A sketch. Jane Birkin, drawn in delicate, reverent lines. And beside her, the sixth guest. Not half erased, not fading, not peripheral, standing beside her, equal. Nesrine's breath caught. This was the version of himself he had wanted to be. The version he believed she saw. The version the others never acknowledged. She traced the edge of the paper with her thumb. "You weren't invisible," she whispered. "You were just unseen by the wrong people." The house creaked softly as though shifting its weight. She folded the sketch carefully and slipped it into her coat pocket. Not as evidence, not as a clue, as a truth. She stood and walked to the window. The terrace below was bathed in the last light of dusk, the stone tiles glowing faintly. The sea beyond was calm, its surface smooth as glass. The cliff path was empty. The world had moved on. The house had not. Nesrine rested her hand on the window frame. "You can rest now," she said. "I'll carry the rest." The house did not answer. It didn't need to. She turned and left the study, closing the door gently behind her. The sound echoed softly through the hall, a quiet punctuation mark at the end of a long, painful sentence. Downstairs, the air felt warmer, the shadows less sharp, the silence less heavy. This had reminded her of her long-lost past, her long-lost family home. She understood this story because she had witnessed something very similar, long, long ago. The kind of story that leaves a person forever changed. She stepped outside just as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon. The house stood behind her, dark against the twilight. No longer a witness to violence, but a keeper of memory. Nesrine walked toward the car, the gravel crunching beneath her boots. She did not look back. She didn't need to. Birkin House would remember her, and she would remember it